everybody, and welcome back to Typical City. This Saturday, 12:30, the accused cheaters versus the proven cheaters of the Premier League. A seismic game of football this could prove to be. 12:30 Saturday lunchtime kickoff in the UK. I will be doing a watch along, so come and join me for that one. It's going to be a monstrous game of football. Manchester City, let's go top of the Premier League. We can do it. We can go back to where we belong, top of the Premier League, and in the process cement those proven cheaters in that minging relegation zone beneath Luton Town, in a very precarious position Everton could be, albeit with a point deduction, and I'll get onto that. But it's going to be a monstrous game of football. It really is a really vitally important game for both ends of the table, of course. Manchester City haven't lost a game in the Premier League in 23 games versus teams in the relegation zone. So this is boding well for Manchester City facing Everton, with them currently being 18th in the league. We've drawn 2 of those 23 games, winning 21 of the others. So it's, that's ominous for Everton and everyone else who ends up in the relegation zone, of course. But they did get a massive point. In fact, Everton haven't won a game in 6 Premier League games, but they did draw their last 3 games. And they got a vital point with a 94th minute Branthwaite header away to Spurs last weekend. So they are a difficult team to beat. They currently have the 4th joint best defence in the Premier League, and they're currently 18th. So that speaks volumes to where they could be had they not been deducted 10 points. They would be somewhere mid-table, of course, but they're going to be so difficult to break down. They really are. It's going to be a really difficult task, and I feel like Sean Dyche tends to set up his teams with that familiar back four of Mykolenko and Branthwaite, Tarkowski, and probably Ben Godfrey now he's back as well. Could we see Ben Godfrey and Haaland clash once again, that resulted in Haaland's mean face where he did that ridiculous face because he was offended at something Godfrey said? That would be hilarious. I'm quite up for seeing that again. No problem with seeing that silly Haaland face, as long as he bags a goal, though, because he was stifled out of the game against Brentford, really struggled. It was a sacrificial performance from Erling Haaland against Brentford. He may have to do the same again against Everton, unfortunately, because they are going to sit deep with that defensive record that they have. They know how to defend, and they'll do exactly the same. They'll try and surround him and just shadow him with 3 or 4 defenders on him at all times. But as we saw against Brentford, that will free up space for the likes of Phil Foden, Kevin De Bruyne, Julian Alvarez, Bernardo Silva, Jeremy, all these players now that are given more space than most rival fans would be comfortable giving them, but they do have to factor in. So it's pick your poison as the opposition fans nowadays. Do you want to mark Haaland out of the game, who is the biggest goal threat in the Premier League? Do you want to mark him out of the game, affording everyone else in the midfield plenty of space to operate? Or do you want to go man for man? In which case that gives Haaland a lot more space, because going man for one-on-one, Haaland's more often than not going to win those battles. It's pick your poison. Pick a lane to which you want to die in, you know. And I'm looking forward to the game, I really are. Manchester City are unbeaten in the last 13 Premier League games against Everton, winning 11 of those, mind you, as well. We're on a 9-game winning streak. We are right now. Can we make it 10? We've got 3 home games, Premier League home games, in a row this month. So you're speaking about momentum now, and it's that time of year again where rival fans, they look at Manchester City and they shit themselves. And there's an air of inevitability to Manchester City at this stage of the season. You can't write the script already. You can't say it's a foregone conclusion. But there is that feel-good factor, that momentum. The pendulum has swung in Manchester City's favour in the second half of the season for what is probably the 4th season in a row. In truth, Manchester City have followed this pattern of becoming an unstoppable juggernaut at the second half of the season. And we're seemingly doing it again, but you can't write off games like this because it's such a difficult game. I don't want to draw. We can't afford to draw. And one thing we can't afford to do is go 1-0 down again, because that defence is going to be a bastard to break down. It really is. Although we've gone 1-0 down, we went 2-1 down against Newcastle, went 1-0 down against Everton at their place, with Jack Harrison getting the goal from Dwight McNeil after Rodri threaded that lovely through ball. What a mistake that was, gifting Dwight McNeil the opportunity to cross the ball for Jack Harrison, tap in 1-0, but we turned that game round and win 3-1. We turned the game round 3-1 against Brentford as well. There's been other games where we've gone with Spurs, we go 1-0 down. We're consistently going 1-0 down. or at least giving away leads like we did against Newcastle, but having to turn it round. But this is the team that we don't really want to do that against. Albeit Everton have only conceded 30 goals this season. City scored 3 of them, so 10% of their goals have been from Manchester City. Can we add more to that this weekend without conceding first? And that's an interesting stat that's been doing the rounds again, is Manchester City have conceded a goal from their conceded first shot on target 12 times this season. The first shot on target we concede, bang, back of the net it goes. Now, I don't think that speaks volumes to Ederson. A lot of people will say, well, Ederson's got to do his job then and stop letting in the first shot on target. Nonsense, because there's nothing he could do about that Maupay goal. The Jack Harrison goal could do nothing about that. The goal against Spurs could do nothing about that. Conceded first shot on target once again. 12 times the opposition has scored from their very first shot. That's infuriating, but that's just the risk and reward of Pep Guardiola's style of football, I'm afraid, with the such expansive back line that we do play. Often, even against Brentford, we had Walker and Guardiola playing as basically wingers, and we squoze that midfield into such a tight space to get players close to Haaland, with Alvarez, Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden all very much alongside. And even Bernardo Silva got out of the way of Walker occasionally, or asked for that overlap. But what that does is leave monstrous gaps in the defence. So it's the clarity of the chances that the opposition's getting because of the risk and reward style of football that we play. It's not through Ederson not saving the shots that he should be saving, or sometimes it is a mistake that we gift the opposition. And again, that is another example of giving a clear opportunity. The clarity of chances that these opposition teams are getting against Manchester City is infuriating. But the reward is so much bigger than the risk. When you have the players that we have, I think we should keep going, playing this way. And as much as it worries me at the other end because of the big holes that we leave quite often with whether it's Nathan Ake, John Stones or Ruben Diaz, whether it are 2 centre-backs, I've just got the whole defence to look after themselves. Sometimes Kyle Walker's alongside them, which is a very good anti-counter-attacking player to have on the pitch, Kyle Walker, for his speed. But when he's been asked to go forward so much like he has this season, that isn't there. We don't have that anti-counter-attacking option. So we do have to be so mindful of that, because Jack Harrison can carry the ball, Dwight McNeil can carry the ball. They can go direct with it, whether it be Beto or Calvert-Lewin. Beto played and started the game at Goodison Park. I think that was a mistake. I think they'll rectify that mistake. I wouldn't be surprised to see Calvert-Lewin start, who I think is the better player and the better focal point for Everton. So good in the air. So good in the air. So Ruben Diaz and John Stones, they've got a difficult task in winning those aerial duels against Calvert-Lewin to prevent any sort of counter-attacking options. But at the end of the day, I do think the players that we've got should be enough to win this game, with players like Phil Foden, who's got 8 goal involvements in his last 6 Premier League games. You talk about Kevin De Bruyne and we all wax lyrical about that man, and rightly so. But right now, Phil Foden is the man. He is him. He's the guy that is the informed player, the unstoppable Premier League informed player. You factor in that Kevin De Bruyne has got 11 goal involvements in his last 11 Premier League games, which does span all the way back to last season, of course, with that huge injury spell. But those are still the consistent figures that Kevin De Bruyne puts on the board. You put Alvarez alongside, who I think's got 8 Premier League goals and 6 Premier League assists to his name this season. You have Erling Haaland, who is just a renowned goal scorer. I do think we should be winning this game. Not comfortably. I can see it being more of a 2-3-0 type of game. We can't afford to be conceding the lead. We really can't. We've got to try and get that goal lead. Now, team news. City, full bill of health, so shitting yourself again, Everton, no doubt, because Manchester City have a full bill of health to choose from. Pep Guardiola can have that luxury of picking from a full squad, which is exciting. Everton, they're not too bad when it comes to injuries. They've got Danjuma, Andre Gomez and Dele Alli, who wouldn't even be playing in this game in truth. Danjuma is a bit of a substitute. Andre Gomez, who I think came on started the game against Spurs a while back, and he was brilliant. I thought Andre Gomez put a fantastic performance in earlier on in the season as well. And return of the midfield duo of Onana and Doucouré are both back. Not sure Doucouré will get back into that starting 11, but I imagine Amadou Onana probably will. Right, in terms of actual team news for predicted starting 11 rather, this is what my predicted starting 11 is for... Let's start with Everton. Jordan Pickford, the most annoying twat in the Premier League. He's so frustrating. I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but on the pitch, can't stand him. He has all mouth, innit? All mouth, man. But and he makes mistakes, big mistakes. We saw him. He gifted the ball to Bernardo Silva, who lobbed it over his head into an empty net because he was pissing about with it in the corner flag. I think he shouldn't be England's number one anymore for me. But anyway, moving on. Ben Godfrey, the man who caused Erling Haaland's face to change shape in a peculiar way, is probably going to be at right back. I think James Tarkowski is going to be in centre back alongside Jared Branthwaite. And at left back, the technical ability and pretty speedy play of Vitaly Mikhailenko. In front of them, they've played a 4-4-2 in most recent games, but I think they're going to revert to a 4-2-3-1 type formation just to stifle that midfield, that Manchester City midfield. They need numbers in there, and playing 4-4-2 at the Etihad against Manchester City, that's such a high-risk style of football. They're going to leave that much space. It would be bold for Sean Dyche to do that, and he's a bold man, but I'm not sure he's that bold. That's bordering on stupidity rather than bold, so I can't imagine he's going to play 4-4-2, in which case I do think it will be Idrissa Gueye, who's been in an all-right vein of form lately, sitting in front of the back four with Amadou Onana as well, and then James Garner, who is a tidy little player, sitting in attacking midfield with Jack Harrison, who scored the opening goal for Everton at Goodison Park, a former Manchester City man, of course, he's a bit of a late bloomer, but he's certainly looking like a decent quality Premier League winger right now as well. He's starting to shine a little bit at Everton. And left wing is going to be Dwight McNeil, I think. And rather than Beto, who they started at the Goodison Park game against Manchester City, I think they'll go back to Calvert-Lewin, who is a much more of an aerial threat and a much better focal point for springboarding your counter-attacks. Right, Manchester City, you could go first. Pick that same 11 that played against Brentford. In truth, you could go for that. There might be the odd change here and there. But I do think, knowing that Everton are going to be aggressive in their defence, it's going to be a tough afternoon, where we're going to have to break them down, be patient. And Pep threw the kitchen sink at Brentford, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's aggressive with his attacking play once again, in just throwing so many forthright and forward-thinking players onto the pitch that there's almost an inevitability that you will break them down. Being cautious with two players in midfield in that box that Pep likes to have, he's sort of abandoned that in the last couple of games and really thrown players into the attacking side of pitch just to throw so many people at them that they can't cope. Let's see if Everton can cope. So Edison will likely start in goal. I'm going to go Kyle Walker at right back. I'm going to go for Ruben Diaz at centre back. Now his partner is interesting because of Calvert-Lewin's aerial ability. Will he start John Stones? Because John Stones is obviously big in the air. He's a good aerial duel battler, John Stones. That's an area that worries me from an Everton point of view. Set pieces as well, they're lethal from them. Nathan Ake, though, albeit he's smaller than John Stones, you can't really afford to be dropping Nathan Ake right now. He's had a decent, almost a week's rest, 6 days rest. So keeping him injury-free is a concern. When we start playing Champions League games with Copenhagen round the corner as well, I think we can start thinking about John Stones then. But I do think this is the game for Nathan Ake, who has been our best defender this season. And he's not, albeit he's one of our smaller defenders, he can jump. He got 7 clearances to his name against Brentford, don't forget. And when Brentford were peppering us with crosses coming into the box after we made it 2-1, Nathan Ake was leaping up and clearing that ball really well. And he's clearing the ball against Ivan Toney, mind you. So he knows how to win an aerial duel himself. So I'm going to go with Nathan Ake, which leaves Josko Gvardiol at left back, who I thought had a complete performance against Brentford. Really good. A little bit sloppy on the ball in the first 10-15 minutes or so, but no catastrophic mistakes. You know, he played well against Burnley, did Gvardiol, but it was that last-minute error that gave Burnley that one goal. They didn't deserve a goal in that game, so hopefully no mistakes from Gvardiol in this game, because he's starting to shine. I think he's stepping up. His confidence looks like it's there, which is good. Rodri in front of them. And then it starts to get interesting in are we going to play a bit more of a reserved midfield where we opt to control the game, or are we going to do what we did against Brentford? I hope we do what we did against Brentford and just throw the kitchen sink at them. Phil Foden is, of course, undroppable right now. Have to play Phil Foden. So I think he's going in there alongside KDB. And I'm still tempted to make a bit of a change, you know. I am tempted to make a bit of a change. But it would be harsh. It would be really harsh. It's tough because Alvarez got 5 shots away against Brentford. He was a threat in that first half. And if it wasn't for Flecken's world-class performance, putting in like 10 first-half saves, then Alvarez could have quite easily got himself a goal in that game. I just think we might need a little bit more of a variation rather than such central attacking potency from De Bruyne, Foden and Alvarez. I wouldn't be surprised if we throw it at them with a little bit more of a... Maybe tuck Bernardo Silva inside instead. So I'm going to put Bernardo Silva on the right and I'm going to put Jeremy Doku on the left, which is explosive and exciting. Of course, Erling Haaland, I think, will start this game. In practice, that's on paper, that's what we'll see. But in practice, I imagine it'll see something like this with Bernardo Silva tucking in alongside and letting Kyle Walker provide a little bit more width. And then you've got an even more of an aggressive attacking formation with Ruben Diaz and Nathan Ake mopping up behind. And you've got an anti-counter-attacking 3 there. Kyle Walker's got his hands full of getting back to prevent the speed and technicality of both Dwight McNeil and Mykolenko. But I think this team should be winning the game, I really do. But what do you think, Blues? What's your predictions? Get in the comments below. Come and join me for the watch along. Drop a like on this video if you haven't already. And if you're new, please consider subscribing. Manchester City 3-0 I'm going for. 3-0 lunchtime kickoff. Might be a bit bold. If anything, it's probably going to be more like 2-0, but I'm going to go for 3-0. We've got to take the lead, though. I think that's the priority. We can't afford to be turning games round again and letting Everton get the advantage and something to hang on to. But get your predictions in the comments below. I really want to hear them. Drop a like on the video as well. Typical City of the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is typical